Why should I obey the rules if they do not? And by they, we obviously mean the people in charge. We mean most obviously Boris Johnson. We mean Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was laughing about it this week. We mean Allegra Stratton, who was laughing about it a year ago, surrounded by all the Lord High panjandrums of Downing Street's media operation. We mean his director of communications, who was dishing out awards at one of these shindigs. We mean pretty much everybody in the politbureau of the UK government. They make the rules, but they don't obey them. That's another one of those moments. Didn't really appreciate the import or the impact of what we were going to talk about while I was reading up before coming on air. And then I actually said the words out loud, and they hit you surprisingly hard. Even though you know what's in the words, when you say them out loud, they hit you harder than you expected. They make the rules, but they don't obey them. They make the rules, but they don't obey them. Hard to think of a more damning indictment of a government than that. Never mind an individual prime minister, an entire governmental machine dedicated to protecting the nation from a coronavirus by imposing rules and regulations that the population is required and expected to follow. But they don't follow the rules themselves. You can see why my fascination with the psychological acrobatics necessary to cling on to any scintilla of loyalty to this man and this government kicks in on an almost hourly basis at the moment, and we will probably be addressing that question a little later in the programme. They make the rules, but they don't obey them. You know, March of 2020, we started pointing out that clarity and leadership were the most valuable commodities in climates like this one, that clarity and leadership could see us through with minimal casualties, minimal deaths. Clarity and leadership were the sworn enemies of confusion and corruption. And what have we ended up with? Seems almost like a nursery rhyme now. Clarity and leadership, doesn't it? Something pie in the sky, something so utterly divorced. Well, that's one area in which the Prime Minister is a bit of an expert, but so utterly divorced from our shared experience that clarity and leadership now sound like unicorns and, I don't know, magic spells. Clarity and leadership. You just imagine. They make the rules, but they don't follow them. So, a couple of people in my personal life, good people, nice people, people who have been through the mill, one of whom I can tell you has really, really suffered, works in the events industry, still not sure if he's going to come out of this with a business to run, may have to go back to working for somebody else after 10 years of building up an operation that was going great guns 2.5 years ago. And that question is the one I think I can answer. I think I got an obvious answer to it, but words are only words, aren't they? Words do not butter any parsnips. Why should I obey the rules when they don't, James? To which my answer is this: because you care about your friends, your family, and your neighbours more than they care about their friends, their families, and their neighbours. The problem is it's really hard to pin that down when they're in charge of all our friends and all our families and all our neighbours. How can the people charged with protecting every friend, every family member, every neighbour, every person, every citizen, every voter, every child, every adult? Seems like the beginning of that House Martin song, doesn't it? I'm about to break into the caravan of love at this point. But how can they be in charge of protecting all of us while so clearly caring not a jot about any of us? Because the rule breaking at Downing Street last Christmas, the myriad rule breaking, and I think looking at Dominic Cummings' Twitter feed and reading The Room and looking at some of the journalists, some of the client journalists, a phrase I hate but use, I think, necessarily, who have sold their souls really for proximity to power and have ended up unable to report accurately upon what power has done, most egregiously, I suspect, in these cases, leading them to actually attend parties, which means they can't write about them. Funny that, isn't it? Imagine. So I think what you've got is this situation where they I mean, you can't argue it differently, can you? The people in charge, it's all very well saying they don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about your mum. They don't care about my mum. But by attending these parties, they demonstrated they didn't care about their own friends, their own families. They didn't care about their own neighbours, their own social circles. They attended parties. Remember when they were dropping like flies with the virus? And now we have a slightly better indication of why that might have been than we had before.